for this interview to start. I am so excited. I am here with Scott F. Mason, founder of F-ervescent LLC, and I took one of his workshops over quarantine, and it was so amazing. I put it in my new Choose Happiness book, chapter 26. So, because it was so wonderful, I had to ask him to come here and share it with all of you. Welcome, Scott. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. It's quite a pleasure to be here and to be talking with you.
Oh, well, the workshop is called Pure Imagination, and it's all about tapping into our inner child to remember the joy and the glee that we felt before we kind of were told all these things as adults that we shouldn't do or we shouldn't be or that we're wrong. And it made such an impact on me. And you're going to share a little mini version of it, correct? With us?
Yeah, I'm gonna share some of the slides from the PowerPoint that I do when I do the seminar, and some highlights, because I don't want to eat up all of your Choose Happiness show here.
Well, it's great. Well, we are looking forward to it. So, Pure Imagination, take it away, Scott.
Thank you, Rachel. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we'll get started. So yes, as Rachel mentioned, it's called Pure Imagination, Healing with Humor in the Workplace and Home, and recalling that inner child. And obviously during the pandemic, most people's workplace were their home. So that has obviously added some content for me to discuss in the future. So I start the seminar by asking these very easy questions. When was the last time that you jumped in a pile of leaves or kicked some around, or stood in a downpour and got drenched and allowed yourself to get drenched and not hide under an umbrella? I'm not going to read every single one of them because you can read them faster than I can talk, but I use this as a setup to let people start thinking about these things and when was the last time that they did them. One of the aspects I talk about is time, because the purpose of Pure Imagination is to de-stress and choose a happier, healthier approach to life by releasing the inner child. And time can be a big stress factor. We all don't think we have enough time. We're trying to manage time and control time, which is not possible. One of the things that people often take away from it is a concept I learned from my father. He was a math teacher, and I would say, Dad, as we grow up and grow older, time seems to go so fast. And he said, well, it is a mathematical equation for it. So if you look down at the bottom of the screen, you see two pies surrounding a clock. And the first pie is, imagine your life as a pie. Life is Pie is a great movie. But imagine that your life is a pie and that each year represents a slice. So when you're 5 years old, there's your pie divided into 5 pieces, and look how big the pieces are. And then on the other side of the clock is your life is a pie at 25 years old, and each year is a smaller piece of pie. And so that's why when you're 5 and 6 and you're just really beginning to think about time, a year does seem so long, because 1 year in your 5 years is a huge chunk of your life. It's 1/5 of your life, and school seems so long, and the summer felt so long. And now the older we get, indeed, those seasons seem shorter and the year seems shorter. Well, when you're 25, look at your pies. It's equivalent, compared to the 5 years. And think about 50 or 60 or 70 and how small those pieces are. So I talk about that because time is a precious resource, and like money, like your health, it is something we shouldn't squander. And so I talk about breaking your routine, because it's a way to try to think about time and how you spend your time in a new way. And I know that Rachel talks about this as well on Choose Happiness. I talk about many different ways to prioritize, maximize your time, but the one little helpful hint I want to give today is the power of no, and not overcommitting yourself. And people often have a hard time saying no, especially to friends, loved ones, family, or one's boss. And I think the best approach is honesty, and saying when you get asked to do something and you really truly don't have the time, you can let people down gently. You can say, I really can't do that favor for you, or I don't have time for that right now, but can you wait? Can you wait till next week when I might have some more time? And that is really important. Is I learned late in life about the power of no. I was so multifaceted in doing so many different things, and it became very stressful. And learning to say no and letting people down gently and knowing that you can own that and it's not a horrible thing is really important. I like to show some different humorous slides in my presentation because humor is another de-stressor. We get, especially this past year, we get into so many stressful situations, and often you just have to sit back, whether you get off the phone from a terrible customer service experience on the phone, which everybody has a story about that, is try to find the humor in a situation. If you can step back and laugh and find the positive, Rachel talks about this in Choose Happiness, find the positive in the negative, we'll all be better off. And so how do you amuse yourself? I offer many different tools, as Rachel does, to think about how to amuse yourself. And one of the ones I want to highlight is, because Rachel and I have talked about this shared experience, is looking, some of you collect birthday cards or Christmas cards or whatever holiday, or even just a simple get well card. And some people put them in boxes and they never look at them again. Or some people just throw them away a week later, they put them on display. And I have kept some that mean something to me. And I started getting the habit of looking at them again. And a new thing that I hope Rachel will appreciate, this is new since the last time we spoke, is I've decided to display them. I just started this after in the new year, and I had this shutter, this old antique shutter that I bought, I think at Michael's, and with the clothespins. And so I have this in the hallway, and some of the cards I keep the cover, some of them I open I want to see the sentiment and who sent it. And I walk by this, and it brings me joy, because it reminds me during so much isolation and COVID that I have friends and I have family and that they care. And it really, truly, if you've never done it, I encourage you to do it. Keep a card that brings you joy when you open it. Keep it for a few weeks, a month, and then go back and read it again. And you'll see that it'll bring that same joy that you first had when you opened it. And so one of the things I talk about in trying to bring humor or amuse yourself is the idea of playing. When we're little, we're told to play, go out and play with your toys, play with your friends. And as we get older and we think we're mature, it's no longer time to play. That being said, adults do play. They play games, they play video games, they play card games with their friends, family. But I want to talk about other ways to play and stop being serious and letting your inner child, that child that we all had in us, let them out. So again, I talk about survival skills that children have. Children are, as we know, so resilient. Playing, faith, spontaneity, curiosity, imagination. These are all survival skills that we have as children. They're innate. They're part of our makeup. And as we get older, we tend to forget some of these things. We put them away. And the one I want to highlight right now, because it is the title of the seminar, is imagination. And often we as adults, we forget to use our imagination. So what is a trigger for imagination? Well, think about the trigger that you've had. Most people have seen this movie. I even recently taught 3 13-year-old young women in an acting class, and they all knew this film, even though it came out long before they were born. Think about that moment when those children ran into that room filled with candy and a chocolate river, and how it made you think. And so I talk about, to trigger your imagination, my big push is to get outside. And I'm not a hiker, I'm not a big outdoors person, I am not going to be camping anytime. It's not on my bucket list, not doing it. But I want to get outside because it triggers my imagination. And when I say get outside, I don't mean get outside and put on your earbuds and get lost in the song, or be catching up with texts or Facebook as you walk. Put that device away and get out, look around, and not just look down at where you're walking, though that is important. So if you need to look down, you're not going to trip or you have issues walking, then stop while you're walking and look up and around. And just look at these images and think about your imagination. When I'm out walking, and it doesn't have to be forever. If it's at work and you have an hour-long lunch break or a 15-minute break, use part of that time to just go outside, even if you need to carry an umbrella, and look at some of these pictures and let your imagination run wild and engage all of your senses. So, for example, there's the picture, I don't even know what it's called, but they're fuzzy, shoots from the grassy plant there. And I took this picture at work because I thought it was a really cool looking plant. And I went up and I felt them and they were so fuzzy. And I thought, wow, I wonder if this plant could talk. If we were watching some sci-fi thing and this plant with these fuzzy things could talk and how they would talk. Or looking up at the clouds. And again, as I say at the beginning of the summer, when was the last time you looked at the clouds and looked for an animal or a scene? So, excuse me, it's important. Those things will trigger one's imagination. And I hope just in this brief little version of Pure Imagination that you've gotten some inspiration and hope out of it. And if you want to learn more, you can always check out the full seminar. So there we go. That's it, Rachel. That's my mini version, quick mini version of Pure Imagination.
It's so wonderful. And I have to tell everybody watching, do sign up for the whole thing because it is just phenomenal. And you will leave with this new lease on life and a new way of looking at things. And it's available on your website, which is www.f-ervescent.com. We'll have it at the end. We'll have it in the notes. And I love the idea about the cards. I've never done that, but that's brilliant because you get it and you're so happy. Oh, that's so nice. And then off it goes in a pile or a box or recycling. But if you have it at one point and say, oh, that's right. Look, that person said congratulations or feel better or I appreciate you or oh, I'm going to start doing that. Look, I learned something from the second time. Amazing.
Well, you highlight in Choose Happiness, you highlight the notion that we talked about, another point from the seminar about taking your artwork and putting it in the refrigerator. And it's sort of a combo of that. So when I got inspired by you commenting on my workshop. And so now it's got one of the holiday cards that came in because the mail was so slow. So I got a Christmas card, I think, in mid-January. So that's up there. And then some Valentine's card. And I think I'm gonna try a thing where I'm gonna leave it up all year. And as the year progresses and different cards come, I'm gonna add them to it. So yeah, thank you for I inspired you as well.
Oh, you did. Well, and what I love about this Pure Imagination workshop is it really aligns with everything that I try to talk about with Choose Happiness. And this in particular of returning to your inner child, getting outside, putting down the devices, is just so important when we're on this happiness journey. And I think we forget. And I'm curious, how did you come up with the workshop and what led you to wanting to share it in your company?
That's a great question. And as you saw in the mini version, humor is part of the presentation. And I was doing workshops at the University of Delaware where I worked, and on public speaking, on leadership, on communication, different topics. And one of my staff persons that worked for me for several years, she transferred to another area, which was our legal office. Now, legal office could be a very serious office. And she was an admin in the legal office, and she was hosting at the university a day-long workshop for other admin types from other legal offices across the country or in higher education. And she said, Scott, everything's always so serious because law is very serious and legal matters and lawsuits and depositions. And she said, you're always so funny. You're always bringing humor into the workplace. Do you have a workshop on that? And I thought, no, but what a great idea. So I started putting it together, and and they loved it. It was one of the highest marked. I asked to see the evaluations, and it was one of the highest marked workshops. And so then I just kept tweaking it and adding things and reevaluating it and then putting it out there. And then I offered it online, as you know, because you participated in during COVID, as a way to, still try to generate some revenue for my company and just spread happiness.
Mm, it's incredible. And I would imagine being on a college campus, you had a lot of data to see when you're watching students walk around or faculty walking around. Did that sort of help generate the ideas?
Well, that's certainly because you practice what you preach, and I was in an office at one point in my career. I was in an office, as many others were, that was on a lower level with no windows, and so periodically one had to get outside because if not, you just don't even know what is the day like. And I noticed I would purposely leave my cell phone on my desk because I wanted to just get away. And I would go outside, and whether it was students or professors or other admin, it was sad in a way to see people just looking down at their cell phone as they walked and not engaging, and not just not engaging with the environment, but not engaging with other people,
Mm,
passing people and not saying hello. And and sometimes, for introverted people, it's very hard to walk down a street and you see a stranger and to say hello or hope you're having a great day. But wow, what a positive, powerful feeling you get out of it when the stranger says back hello. Now, sometimes they don't, and that's very sad. But
yeah. It's fascinating because I have to get inspiration sometimes. I have gone down to a college campus to walk around because I feel like it's sort of humming with innovation and promise. And I always love walking around college campuses because I just feel like it's in the air. There's young people and there's learning. And it's interesting that I wonder if it's changed a bit now, certainly from when I was in school or even 10 years ago when phones weren't quite as prevalent. So that's interesting. I'll have to head down to see you and see. Huh. Well, I have to say, you are so multifaceted. You have years, decades of experience as a performer, an educator, an administrator, a playwright, a project manager. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. Can you share some of your additional workshops, entertainment that you provide through Effervescent?
yeah, sure. So I had mentioned earlier, there's other workshops that I do on public speaking, which is so hard for some people. Just the thought of getting up in front of 3 or 4 people and giving a speech is really hard. So I do a basics of public speaking. I'm working on a couple of upcoming other workshops. I do one because of my background in higher education for 30 years. I do one on choosing the right college, which is getting really tricky now as we're dealing with COVID and virtual classes and in-person classes. But it was always eye-opening to me because I worked in the college union buildings, or student centers as we called them, and seeing the tours and hearing what the tour guides, and God bless them, it's what they're taught to do, talk about all the highlights. And of course, you want to talk about highlights of a college campus, but there's so many important questions that parents don't think about when they and their student are choosing a right college. Things like the size of the school, the distance, all these factors that you don't think about, which not only play into what is the right choice in terms of hopefully guaranteeing future success after graduation, but in this day and age is the price tag. It's things that you don't think about. People look at, oh, what's the tuition cost? And they don't think about all the other inherent costs that you might encounter, expenses based on the choice. So that's another one. And then I do my mystery tours for my years of hosting mystery games, and that's a lot of fun. And I offer teaching, acting. As I mentioned, I taught 3 teenage young women acting, basic acting class, and I do a director's workshop. I do an auditioning workshop. So yes, there's a bunch of workshops in the theater realm. Yeah.
Now, are most of these available virtually as things open up? Or you're still going to be doing some virtually?
Yes, and in fact, it's really trying to accent the positive, as you and I do often. It is one of the positive outcomes of the pandemic is it makes it so accessible. So whereas I was going to venues, whether it was a Parks and Rec kind of situation or a place that holds various workshops, doing it virtually, somebody from Hawaii can pay and tune in. So uh, even though we're opening back up, clearly with the theatrical things and so much of my company is event driven, yes, I want to get back to doing events. But when it comes to the workshops, whether it's Public Speaking 101 or Pure Imagination, doing them virtually is great because now I have invested in all the technology because of COVID, and it's here, and I don't need to find a place. I don't need to make people get in their car and drive to the workshop. They can take it at home and get the same results. There's a few things in some of the workshops that are, I guess, more involved and interactive, which is a little trickier on Zoom or StreamYard, but it's not out of the question. It's not it's not impossible.
Mhm,
So I will keep offering things virtual, whether it's a group or one-on-one. I,
mhm.
after the initial acting class, one of the young women was applying, auditioning for a theater school, and she wanted some further, her parents wanted some further teaching. So we did one-on-one tutoring. So
Wow.
possibilities, Rachel, are endless.
Well, it's really true. And I think that particularly the pure imagination as well as the public speaking could be so helpful at companies if they want to do like a mini retreat day or just some enrichment for their employees. And then they could all gather together, spaced apart or whatever, and have you up there. And then if they want to do breakout sessions, they can. But I think, especially for companies, it's so important, especially when morale has been down and everybody's just been slogging along for the year. I think that would be a great thing for a company to offer their employees. Um, wow.
Well, and there is a version. I did it once, but I can certainly do it again with Pure Imagination, where I did breakouts for team building, and so most corporations, even higher education, not technically a corporation, but we often had day-long retreats with different presenters or a facilitator that took us on different journeys throughout the day. And so it's again something I'm perfectly capable of doing as well.
I think that's so important. You are also amazingly artistic, and you have a flair for interior decorating, which I have seen. And you've done your own decorating other people's homes professionally as well. But you also have phenomenal, just astronomically amazing holiday decorations, personalized Christmas trees, and custom made wreaths. Can you talk about your passion for decorating? Because I also talk about in the book how having a space that lifts you up, you can walk into your home and love your surroundings. Is very important in choosing happiness, and especially your holiday tours and open houses that provide other people just these mountains of holiday joy.
Well, I think the reality is just maybe it's the theater person in me. When we were, and you're a theater person, Rachel. Uh, the idea of dressing up, so Halloween was always really cool, and then of course Christmas. It's something. It's just in me. I don't know why. It's not like my parents or my grandparents or anybody in my family really went as nutty as I go with Christmas decorating. It just brings me joy. And I read right before this year's holidays, I read an article about how so many people, because of the pandemic and being stuck in their home, were really going crazy with decorating because it was bringing them joy. And I think especially especially Christmas. It doesn't have to be Christmas depending on your faith, but holidays are a time for family, and they're 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 milestones, because just like your birthday, and we count the birthdays, those holidays are milestones and they have memories attached to them. And I decorate for Christmas. As I'm decorating, I can't help but think about past Christmases with loved ones that are perhaps gone now, but I think of them fondly, pictures, whatever it might be. And it brings me joy to be, because it's creativity, it's imagination. And that's, I use it triggers my imagination because I actually spend a year plotting out what I'm going to do, which sounds bizarre, but I see it, I imagine it. I imagined last year I wanted this toy shop and I wanted a train, not on the ground on a platform. I wanted it going around like it was on a shelf in a toy store. And I saw it and I did it. It was a pain. Don't think about it again, but I did it. And I think what really it saddens me in a bit. So many people do come to my home and they look around and they're I think it brings back that inner child. They're awestruck. They're just in wonder. And they're like a child in a candy store and they're just looking around. And it always makes me a little sad when people go through and they say, oh, I haven't even done my tree yet. Or, I don't even know if I'm going to have time to do a tree. And I'm thinking, oh, but make the time, because as you saw in the pies of life, life is short and the years get shorter, and you have to make the most of it. Even if you only have time for a little 3-foot tree, and I hate such the emphasis just all on Christmas, but whatever holiday it is, whatever faith you are, make that Passover Seder really exciting, whatever it might be, Halloween, Thanksgiving, St. Patrick's Day. I mean, look, yeah, that's what cracks me up. I saw a meme or something, a post on Facebook about, well, we're all Irish for St. Patrick's Day, and everybody goes out and parties and gets green. It's okay, so we use that as an excuse to socialize and party. And then, of course, Cinco de Mayo comes along and everyone's Mexican because it is a Mexican holiday. And, it's like, so why not be festive all the time? Let's do something festive for Arbor Day.
Yeah, I'm in. That sounds great. I think it's a shame when people say something like, oh, why should I put it all up when all I have to do is take it all back down? It's like, yeah, but you're going to enjoy it for the 4 weeks or the 6 weeks that it's up. So don't even think about the taking down. That you'll get there, Or I also think it's really sad when someone might walk through your amazing home and say, oh, I could never do it as well as this. And it's like, that's not the point. Who cares? Do what's good for you. Just do it.
Rachel, that's such a good point. People do say that, and they get down on themselves, and that is, it's what makes you happy. People, clearly, many people have come in and said, oh my God, this is way too much. Way too, this is overkill. And that's right, but that's my choice. And I think that's what's important, is it's not about perfection. And I think sometimes I try to show people think I spend hours doing what I do. And yes, I spend hours because it's a lot of stuff, but not necessarily in the details. For example, I have decorated garland and people go, oh, it must take you forever. And I'm like, no, don't think about it. Sometimes people, in being creative, they overthink. And I don't plot out, I don't measure out, okay, here's a poinsettia, here's a pine cone. No, you just go free form,
Yeah. And that's also the pure imagination, because you're in this zone of, I'm going to make it the way I see it in my head, and it's going to be the way it's going to be. It might not be, quote, perfect, like, if you will, on Pinterest or something, but that's fine, because again, who cares? It's the way you saw it and the way you wanted it. And then what is perfect is perfect to you. So who, I think we trip ourselves up again, like you said, by thinking too much. And if we just allow ourselves to be a kid and say, I'm going to put this up, or I'm going to decorate this way, and if it brings you joy, go with it. And all of the pictures and videos of your amazing stuff is also on the website. So please check that out, because it's spectacular.
Well, that's the funny thing. I can appreciate going, because of course I go to other people's homes at the holidays, and some people are very feng shui and simple. And I look at that and I get inspired and go, I like the simplicity of that. And I'm gonna copy that in my home. Certain people, it's about the colors, like everything has to be red. I prefer a variety. Old style, new style, what have you.
Mhm.
And I have a set of friends that are keeping up their Christmas tree till April. They made a commitment and said, we're not taking this down to April because it brings them joy. It's all they did was the one tree, and they decorated it, and when we zoom, it's in the background. People keep mocking them, going, "Your tree's still up." And they said, "Remember, we're keeping it up till April because it brings them joy. So
Yeah.
why not?"
Yeah.
No
And that's where I
one's
just,
going in the house because it's COVID.
and that's where I also feel like, hey, judges, zip it. We didn't ask. You know? Yeah. Thank you so much for that unsolicited, insult. Lovely. Another one of your passions is conservation and saving the environment. And I know you're working on a new workshop about preserving the earth for future generations. While you're formulating that, is there maybe a tip you could share with the viewers on conservation?
Yeah, one of the things that, and again, I'm not out there on a Greenpeace boat. I try to do what I can do, and that's the basis of putting together this workshop. Is you can make a difference. You don't have to be out on the highway picking up litter. Of course, that's great. Don't be a litterer. But one of the things that I think we so take for granted is the world supply of water, especially when we are so fortunate as Americans to have an abundance of water. And you think about third world countries where it's like gold. It is, but it's unlike gold. It's something the body needs. We need as a nutrient, and when we waste it, it drives me nuts. So one of the little tricks, and so part of this is saving the environment, but also part of the workshop is to also save money while saving the environment. And I started doing this trick about a year and a half ago, and I love it, Rachel, and it has seriously cut down on my water bill, which is we turn on the faucet in the shower or the tub or the kitchen sink because we're going to do dishes, and we sit there and the water runs while we're waiting for the water to get warm or hot. And it just dawned on me one day, wow, all this water is just going down the drain. So I saved some orange juice containers, the plastic containers that, whether it's orange juice, tomato juice, whatever, iced tea, some kind of plastic container. And whether I'm in the shower, whether I'm getting the dish, doing dishes, or even wanting to wash my hands properly with warm water, while while the faucet is running and the water is coming out, I fill those jugs and waiting just for the shower water to get hot before I send it through the shower. I can fill a 64-ounce jug with that water. And then I use that water for watering plants, for cooking. I put it in a pot. So there's fewer times that I'm turning on the faucet to fill a pan because I already turned on the faucet to take my shower in the morning. And here's all the water that I could have used for something else. So it is a great way to save water and again save the environment because you're not wasting that water down a drain.
Wow. That is staggering that it would be that much in just that couple of minutes.
Well,
And
and especially in the winter, because my pipes start in the basement and I live in the Northeast. And so the basement is cold. And so it takes a while for that, the bathroom, the showers all the way, 2 floors above, and
mm,
waiting for that water to get hot. Yeah.
brilliant. Oh, that's brilliant. So stay tuned for the conservation workshop coming up. I will be taking that. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, and I'll tell one more secret because plastic bottles, I work because of my work in theater and dance, and I work sometimes with the dance studio, and all these young people, they have these little plastic water bottles they buy, and they drink a few sips, and then they just leave. The rehearsal's over, they leave, and whether it's adults at theater or the children at the dance studio, there's all these half emptied water bottles. Now, of course, COVID and people drinking out of their own water bottle, this is a little tricky now, but prior, I would go around and collect all the half emptied, half full water bottles. Now, I wasn't going to drink it, I wasn't going to cook with it, but I had a special plastic bottle labeled plants, and I would put all the water in that, and I used that water for the plants because it doesn't matter what germs they had, the plants aren't going to care. So I water plants with all, and I collect over just doing the Nutcracker and rehearsing for weekends for 3 months. I have enough to feed the plants for a year practically.
Wow.
My indoor plants, my in-house plants. Oh yeah.
Well, I would never think of all that water going to waste, but it's tons. It is just tons and tons of water just getting poured out or thrown away or anything. Wow. And I love that you had the wherewithal and the observational ability to see that happening and then do something about it. That's amazing.
Well,
Wow.
and I saw, the people that work at the studio going around and picking them up and putting them in the trash can. So first of all, the water's still in it. And now you've got this plastic mass filling a landfill. I mean, that's what drives me nuts is how much, because I grew up on Long Island and seeing all the massive landfills grow and grow and grow over the years that I would go back, where now it was like a mountain, and
Yeah. No, we got to protect Mother Earth. We have, it's up to us for our kids and our grandkids and future generations. I'm on board. You are such an upbeat and positive person by nature. Can you share how you choose happiness in your life and whatever tools you might have in your toolbox?
well, luckily your book is many of them. So I'll plug your book because I've been reading I like, as I told you before, jumping around. You don't have to read it in sequence. It's not a novel story. And I think for me, it's just is is being self-aware and my background for my work in higher education was a master's degree in college counseling. And so being self-aware is so important. And and stopping oneself, like I use the example that we've all been through. Everybody can relate. Calling customer service, not getting a person, pushing all the buttons, we all have the nightmare. And and sometimes getting off those calls, I will be so stressed out. And it's taking a moment to say, wow, I'm really stressed and I'm angry. And a lot of times it brings a lot of anger. And when you have those emotions, and especially during COVID, sadness, isolation, depression, whenever I feel what I would label some troubling or negative emotions taking over my day, that's when I have to stop. And that's where I might seriously just stop what I'm doing. I'm fortunate to have a pond and a lot of critters running around my neighborhood, but I'll just stop what I'm doing and say, I'm going to go walk for 5 minutes. It's going to be a half hour. I'm just going to walk around the pond for 5 minutes and look at the ducks and the geese and think about life and what's important and forget that phone call and and not repeat it. And I'm guilty of this. We a lot of us are guilty of this, but it's also not reliving the trauma. So that is a new tool because during COVID, I found myself doing this a lot where I'd have some crazy story. Again, let's use the customer service call. And then I'd call my mom and tell her about it. Oh my God. And then I'd call my friend, or my friend would call me and say, how's your day going? Oh, you're not going to believe this. I was on the phone and then we're repeating it. And it's like watching a terrible accident over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
You tell the story of that bad customer service experience or that friend that annoyed you. You're just reliving, you're just putting those emotions back in you. So that's a new thing that I've started doing, sort of like setting the boundaries with saying no, is 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 getting into a situation where if this is not triggering good stuff in me, I need to stop. I need to stop. One of the nice things about not going to a movie theater, you go to a movie theater and you pay 12 bucks or whatever for a ticket. So even if halfway through the movie you're sort of like, ugh, you stay because you paid $12. The nice thing about some of the streaming, even though you may pay $12 a month or whatever, it's not for that one movie. So in watching movies, especially trying to be happy during pandemic, I'll start watching a movie and either it's deadly dull or it's violent or it's depressing, and I just stop. And I'm like, I'm not going to watch this anymore because it's not healthy.
Yeah. That is really brilliant. The part about reliving, because I feel like, if let's say that call happens at 8 in the morning and then you're upset and then it's, oh, and then I, dropped this thing when I was doing this and then you're reliving it all day and you're sharing with people. And then you've had a bad day. Look, you've, 7 o'clock at night, look, what a bad day. Or it could just be, well, that was annoying. I walked around the pond, came back, fresh start. And then it was just like, ugh, oh yeah, that happened a couple hours ago, whatever. That's beautiful and brilliant. Oh, I love that. Yeah. Oh,
And so, I was very blessed early in my theatrical career. I did a production of Children of a Lesser God. And of course, that's about a teacher teaching at a school for the deaf. And the actress who played the lead was deaf. And we would often have very interesting conversations. And one of the things she taught me was how the deaf community tells a story versus the hearing community. And she said she used an accident, like a tragic car accident, as a setup. And she'd say, Scott, if you told the story, you'd be, okay, so I was driving from work to home. You're not going to believe this. It was around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we have all these crazy details as a hearing speaking person just to get to, and there was this accident. It was 2 cars. They were totally totaled. I hope everybody's okay. And she said, in my deaf community, she said, if I saw an accident, I would simply see my friend and say, I saw an accident.
wow. Right.
Done.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't need to know where you were driving, where you're driving from, but it's we feel compelled to do all the details. And when in saving time, it's just quite simply to say to your friend, like if you called me up and said, Scott, how's your day going? And I'd say, oh, I was on the phone with, I won't even say the company name, blah, 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 blah. And it went on, and then I pushed this button, and blah, 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 and I've relived the experience. I've dragged you into the experience.
Right.
So now you're having a nightmare. You just say, Rachel, I had this really awful call with so-and-so customer service, and let's just talk about something else because I need to stop thinking about it.
Yes. Yes. That is such a great metaphor for life, don't you think? Really? Oh, let that sit for a minute. That's really extraordinary.
Well, couples do it too, whether regardless of what the couple is, husband and wife, husband and husband, partners, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. They'll relive arguments, and you don't need to do that. Mm-hmm. That's not what happened. You said this, and then I said this, and then it's over. We don't need to go back and analyze it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not, and it's also it's not serving where we are now or where it's going in the future. We could kind of put it to, if I'm choosing happiness, do I want to spend all day being upset about this phone call? No, I do not. I want to move on and take my power back and walk around the pond and make that choice.
Well, because again, getting back to how time is a precious resource, I've already wasted, let's say, 20 minutes of my time on this, and perhaps it was resolved. It's not always a bad ending. It may have had a happy resolve, but it still took 25 minutes of frustration. If I'm going to spend another 25 minutes to a half hour setting up the story and retelling the story, I'm now wasting more time.
Right.
I'm allowing that 30-minute chunk of my life to now take away another 30-minute chunk of my life.
Yes. Wow. I think I see a new workshop for you here. That is brilliant. So tell me what's happening performance-wise as things are opening up. Are you going to be going on tour again?
Well, yes, things are opening up. So locally, I'm doing some shows. We will see. On my list to do, my long list to do every week that I have. This week and next, I'm going to hopefully be sending out, because I know that venues are starting to open again. The nice thing about my work that I do as a Dame Edna impersonator is it's just me. So in terms of safety and numbers, you're just hiring me to do stand-up comedy as opposed to a band or a play or touring play, which there's not even, I think, any tours going around right now. So I'm going to start reaching out to those smaller theater venues on the East Coast and across the country, and start just sending out a note and my link to my video sample, and say, hey, if you're looking for, inexpensive work talent to come as you reopen your venue, please consider, moi.
That's great. Oh, that's wonderful. Because yeah, things are going to start opening up probably at less capacity. So if it is a single performer, that's really going to align with what they're trying to do.
Well, because one of the rules, I mean, at least in the states that I have researched currently, is that when you're looking at capacity, if your theater holds 300, so you can have, say, 50 people or not, whatever the number is, you have to include your performers and your staff in that number. It's not just,
Oh,
yeah. So yeah, you don't, if you're a theater and you don't, and you seat 300, you probably don't want to do Les Mis because the cast is going to be half of that,
right. Wow. Well, I wish you the most luck that anyone could have in booking some new venues. And I cannot thank you enough I learned so much today, and you had so much great things to share. Check out Scott's website at F-ervescent.com. Again, we'll have it down there. And at the end, you're just a gem. Thank you so, so much for everything.
You are a gem, my friend, and thank you for all the positive, exciting, happy time we had this afternoon.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Mwah. Stay well.